Ancient travelers left behind their golden travel accounts in the form of travelogues for the future generations to read, learn and delight. We bring those to you in our audio series, Travelogues in Time.
In today's edition, we have the fourth part of the travel accounts of Francois Bernier, the French doctor who visited India in the 17th century. In the first three parts, you heard a short biographical sketch of Francois Bernier, his early life and education, and the various destinations of his remarkable journey. He arrived in India in the 17th century when the War of Succession amongst the Mughal princes was raging. Bernier's explanation of writing an exotic historical narrative and dedicating it to the King of France Louis XIV, Bernier's journey within India, and his observations regarding socio-cultural matters. Bernier observes the economic, political and legal system in medieval Asia and compares these with French system. Many debates have sprung around his opinion. The script and presentation is by Farhat Nasreen, Professor of History at Jamia Millia Islamia. Over to Farhat Nasreen.
Bernier observed that the Asiatic states lacked private property in land, and that all lands were owned by the despotic monarchs. In his letter to Colbert, the finance minister of Louis XIV, Bernier compared the administrative systems of Turkey, Persia, and India with those of France. He expressed his thankfulness for the provision of private property and the rule of law in France. He claimed that Asiatic despotism, which he saw in Turkey, Persia, and India, would eventually lead to tyranny, ruin, and misery. Cities like Paris and London would never come up in regions like this because they do not observe the rule of law. Bernier presents an exhaustive list of items which were exported from and imported into India. Amongst the metal imports which he lists are gold, silver, and lead. He claims that annually almost 25,000 horses were imported into the country, and a great number of them came from Persia and Central Asia. Fresh fruits arrived from Samarkand, Balkh, Bukhara, and Persia. He says that most parts of the country are extremely fertile. He claims that the region of Bengal could easily surpass Egypt in productivity. Besides producing large quantities of rice and corn, it also produces items of commercial value like silk, cotton, and indigo. He says that the artisans in this area were adept at manufacturing carpets, brocades, embroideries, and gold silver cloth. These items were in demand all over the world. Amongst the operators of big merchant vessels in the region, he mentions the Indians, the English, the Dutch, and the Portuguese. He also informs his readers about the banking and money transfer facilities in medieval India. His information about usury and money lending is indeed priceless. Barrington Moore, with his Eurocentric liberal socialist perspective, used Bernier's observations to overemphasize the despotic tendencies in the Mughal administration. He assumed that there was no national nobility and no coalition between landed interests and local merchants and traders. Accordingly, it was concluded that elements which were important for the development of capitalism and parliamentary democracy were missing in the polity and economy of medieval India. Bernier's comments about the relationship of the Mughal center with the surrounding satellite, border, and peripheral regions triggered off many debates amongst historians, economists, and sociologists. His ideas were used by Karl Marx to put forth his theory of the Asiatic mode of production. On the other hand, later stalwarts of history like Irfan Habib revisited Bernier's writings to study the economic history of medieval India. Sometimes Bernier is accused of deliberately camouflaging the element of permissive acceptance in the policies of the Mughal rulers of India. However, the fact remains that the tenor, tone, and content of Bernier's writings continue to attract readers to his narrative. His account is indeed an unsurpassable gem.
You have just heard the final part of the travel accounts of Francois Bernier, the French doctor who visited India in the 17th century. The script and presentation was by Farhat Nasreen, Professor of History at Jamia Millia Islamia. Tune in next week at the same day, time and frequency for travel account of another traveller.
Travelogues in Time. Travelogues in Time.